Hello and welcome to the Education Talk. This is a new program series by Government Arts and Commerce College from the platform of CREATE, the Center for the Recreational and Educational Activities for the Transformative Experience. And today the topic of our talk is Decolonization of English Language Teaching. And today I have the esteemed guest, Professor Ameer Ali Abbasi, to have light on this.
Thank you so much, Mansoor, for providing me an opportunity to share my views from the platform of Create.
Very welcome to this program, and since we are colleagues and we have to do this again and again on this platform on different topics, and this is the initiative that we were looking forward from many weeks, and finally we are here with this program. The topic that you have suggested is the decolonization of the English language teaching. So before we go to decolonization, could you please explain how colonized a language can be?
Thank you so much for asking that question from me. Well, decolonization is basically a process of liberating English language teaching, and that process of liberation involves, especially when it comes to English language teaching in the context of our secondary or higher secondary educational institutions. This process involves using culturally relevant pedagogies. When I say relevant pedagogies, I suggest that we should design our teaching methods in a way that we should take examples, narratives, and values from our local socio-cultural context and use these things as tools in English language teaching. Apart from that, we can also use narratives from our local socio-cultural contexts, and this using these things involves the process of decolonization, which is like challenging the linguistic and colonial hegemony of the English language teaching.
Do you think decolonization is relevant to the modern teaching?
Yes, decolonization is so much related with modern teachings of modern methods of teaching. Because these methods of teaching, grammar translation method, direct method, ideolingual method, and other techniques and approaches which are used in English language teaching, these are actually the production of a colonial era. Now we are living in the post method era, which is actually a post colonial response to the hegemony of English language teaching, the myth of the standard English. I say myth because there's no such kind of standard when it comes to English language teaching. Each language has its own standard. We are in Pakistan. Speaking and using Pakistani standard English language that has its own standard. And when it comes to Sindh, we are using the Sindhi English language, so it has its own standard. So we cannot say that standard only belongs to British English or the American English. So we have to counter that myth.
So you were talking about the opposing or going against the standardization of the language or teaching of the standard language. Don't you think it can affect the quality of learning, or do you think that it will affect the oral learning of language if we oppose the standardization?
The standardization of English language is basically a political process. It's like saying that one norm is a standard and the other norm is not a standard. It's like saying one value is a standard and the other value is not standard. It's like saying that English words are standard, but the words that are used in the Pakistani English are non-standard. These kind of binaries that we linguistic binaries that we create, these are actually the product of colonial mind. They create this standard to show that our language is much better, it's more standard, while the languages of other peoples the colonized communities or the colonized groups are non-standard languages. Even they are not accepting the varieties of English that we are speaking, on the so-called the myth that they have created, that these are non-standard languages and we will not acknowledge the use of these languages. This was also the case of the black the English that was spoken and used by the black Americans or the Afro Americans. So the white Americans would not accept their variety of English, and they used to say that this is vernacular variety of English, and that is non-standard variety of English. But that's not that was not the case. Language, when it travels to different contexts, when it travels to different societies, it changes, and it adapts to the local sociocultural reality. When the English came to the subcontinent, their language slowly and gradually accommodated the local sociocultural reality. So changes came to the language. We should accept those changes, and we should use culturally relevant pedagogies to encourage the process of English language learning and teaching inside the classroom.
So you basically say that the globalization is leading to localization, right? So the importance of local or vernacular aspect is getting importance, and it is basically a modern and a new wave in the language learning, and and this is not only the importance of languages taking place, but as well as the vernacular cultures as well. So how do you see that uh, in decolonization of the English language aspect?
You mentioned an interesting term, globalization. In English language teaching, we use that term, globalization of English language teaching. Now, in globalization of English language teaching, what we normally do, we respect, the norms and values and culture of the students. Okay, their attitude towards their, not only towards their local languages, but the variety of English that they are learning will change. Normally, we are told that when we speak English, we have accent. Our pronunciation is not the pronunciation produced by the natives. So it's not like that. They have their own variety of English, and that's good for them. We have our own variety of English, which is culturally appropriate for us.
There is a response when we come to the standardization of language, or speaking of a standard accent, and there's some kind of acceptance for standard accents. As you said, you mentioned about accents, so this question comes in my mind, that if we are moving towards decolonization, so it is imperative to accept the local and vernacular accents and dialects and different variations of language. So do you think it will get social acceptance as well, and cultural acclimatization?
Cultural acclimatization is already taking place. It's a process, and it has been going on since the British arrived in the subcontinent. Their language started adopting the local sociocultural norms and values. Now when it comes to acceptance, some people are not accepting this local variety of English language. The reason is that they are mentally colonized. Now we have to decolonize the mind. We have to make them believe that what they practice, what they believe, and what they say, it has value. It is valuable. They do not necessarily have to comply with the British standards or the American standards. They learn to value their culture, and they need to express that culture in their language. Language is a tool to express yourself. If the British used that tool to colonize you, we should and we can use that tool to, you know, challenge that hegemony that was created, the linguistic hegemony that was imposed by the British on us. So we can do it by taking initiatives.
Now the discourse is not going in a single direction only for language. Now it is moving towards cultural aspect as well, and the psychological aspect as well. So do you think it is a task to do to decolonize people?
Certainly, it's a collaborative. It requires collaborative effort to challenge that process of colonization or to initiate the process of decolonization, which has already started in a number of places. And now, when it comes to our society, especially when it comes to educational institutions, we should train our teachers. We should provide them trainings in post method teaching approaches, and these will help them believe that the variety they have been teaching, that they have been learning, is actually the you know different variety of English that is spoken and used in the uh, in London or other parts of the Great Britain or the United Kingdom. The variety which is known as the Standard English, it is hardly spoken by you know some percentage of the uh, total world's population, which is not a great number. So in Pakistan, we are using and speaking Pakistani Standard English, or in Sindh, we are using Sindhi Standard English. So when we would emphasize in post-method teaching logy, in which culturally relevant pedagogies will play an important role, so this will help in the process of decolonization.
Certainly, it is a giant task, and we are the teachers who are going to do this. Do you believe that the teachers are also colonized and their methods is also colonized, and it also needs to be decolonized, as you said that culturally relevant pedagogies. So, before moving towards a student, it is the training of the teacher basically that needs to be decolonized. What is the data and the resource which needs to be developed to inculcate decolonized method of teaching English language?
Well, the whole profession of English language teaching in our society, up to some extent, is colonized. Even some teachers, they are practicing the colonial methods of English language teaching. When we do this, we create gaps, educational gaps, cultural gaps, linguistic gaps between the standard variety or version of English that we are propagating inside the class and the non-standard variety of English that is, spoken in the real life context. Is you're asking about the resources and the data. Where will we get that data to, enrich our post-method teaching methodologies? We have students. When students they come to class and they, carry with themselves cultural stuff, narratives, values, whatever they learn from the society. So we have to, entertain all those stuff inside our, English language teaching methodologies, and so that we can create that link between the academic content and the social cultural knowledge that the students, bring inside the class. This will only happen when we entertain their norms and values inside the process of language teaching and learning, and this will help reduce, cultural gaps and learning gaps inside our institutions.
Certainly, the thing that you just explained is extraordinary and needs to be implemented on a comprehensive scale with a comprehensive strategy towards the decolonization. And I believe it is necessary. The question that now arises in my mind, that the teaching is now completely IT assisted. You cannot teach easily with the old method, because the student that you inculcate and that you teach is more IT oriented than the teacher. So teacher has to adapt with the student's
Right.
capability and the potential. So how decolonization process with the help of IT, and with what strategy teachers should be doing this?
That's a very interesting question. Well, language is a tool of conveying information. Similarly, information and technology is a tool which you can use for different purposes. We can use information and technology to decolonize the process of English language teaching and learning. For example, we can create digital archives of our socio-cultural narratives. We can create e-libraries. We can create e-resources, and we can save these resources, which are easily available, and we can utilize these resources um, in the process of English language learning and teaching. So it will make it easier to decolonize the profession of English language teaching.
What a comprehensive reply that you give to my question, and I agree with you on this point. Uh, could you please, in the end, this will be uh, the last question of this segment related to the topic, and then we will move on the newsletter that we have recently published. So I was asking that how do you connect? I'll rephrase my question. That do you think that this decolonization process is limited to English language only, or teachers of English language only? So, as the English language is the classroom language for our system. So, my question is, how do you relate this process with the teachers of other subjects as well? Since the English language is mode of communication, mode of examination, mode of assessment, in all aspects we use that. So, does it apply to English language teachers only, or it has to be uh, a, a process in other subject as well? So decolonization should be all over the place, not relevant to the English language teachers only.
Decolonization is a comprehensive process. It does not only relate to English language teaching, but it also relates to almost all subjects that we are teaching inside our institutions. Let's take an example of mathematics. Mathematics is colonized. We are learning the British, mathematics, the Western mathematics. Our local, the local mathematics has been suppressed. We have Indian mathematics, we have Chinese mathematics, and even in Sindh there are local you know uh, ways of measuring things. So even mathematics is colonized. We need to decolonize that. Other subjects, our politics is colonized. We are Eurocentric, we are Western centric. We are relying on their Western theories and praxis to look at our sociocultural reality, which is not compatible with whatever the Western theories are, ideologies propagate. So we have to decolonize our politics as well. Other subjects are also colonized. So we need to decolonize those subjects as well.
Thank you, Amir, Professor Amir Ali, and it was a great discussion on decolonization of English language teaching, and I believe our audience will get most of this, and this will benefit students as well, teachers as well, and community as a whole.